Israel bombed and shelled Gaza on Saturday, witnesses and first responders said, with fallout from the war bringing a resurgence of tensions to the Lebanon border and Yemen. In the 9th month of war between Palestinian Hamas militants and Israeli forces, the Civil Defense Agency in Gaza City, in the territory's north, reported 10 bodies recovered from Israeli strikes on 3 separate homes. Witnesses in Rafah, in the extreme south of Gaza, close to Egypt, reported gunfire directed at a refugee camp in the city center and fighting between militants and Israeli forces in the west of the city. Pictures on social media depicted mostly empty streets. The United Nations says about 1 million people have been displaced from Rafah since early May, when Israel began ground operations in pursuit of Hamas militants. Israel's military has also been operating in central Gaza. The war began after Hamas's unprecedented October 7th attack on southern Israel, which resulted in the deaths of 1,194 people, mostly civilians, according to Israeli official figures. The militants also seized 251 hostages. Of these, 116 remain in Gaza, although the army says 41 are dead. At least 37,266 individuals have died in Gaza as a result of Israel's retaliatory operation. The majority of them were civilians, according to the health ministry run by the terrorist organization Hamas. With Hezbollah terrorist fighters, based in Lebanon and backed by Hamas and Iran, launching missile and drone attacks on Israel, fears of a larger Middle East conflict have returned. Hezbollah said intense strikes since Wednesday were retaliation for Israel's killing of one of its commanders. According to the military, Israeli forces retaliated with artillery and declared airstrikes on Hezbollah installations on the other side of the border. According to village leader Hassan Shur, 2 ladies were killed in a hit on Janata in southern Lebanon. These are the most recent casualties in almost daily gun battles between Israeli armed forces and Hezbollah terrorists since the start of the Gaza conflict. French President Emmanuel Macron said this week that his country and the United States would work separately with Israeli and Lebanese authorities to ease tensions. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant rejected the initiative, decrying hostile policies against Israel by France, which last month had barred Israeli firms from an arms trade show. The Israeli Prime Minister's office and senior foreign ministry officials distanced themselves from Gallant's comments. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that a resolution of the conflict in Gaza and getting a ceasefire was the best way to help end the hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel during a trip to the Middle East this week to promote a proposal for a Gaza truce, which hasn't happened yet. At a summit of the G7 group of advanced economies in Italy, U.S. President Joe Biden called Hamas the biggest hang-up so far to reaching a Gaza truce and hostage release deal. Hamas has insisted on the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a permanent ceasefire demands Israel has repeatedly rejected. Blinken has said Israel backs the latest plan, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coalition partners are in strongly opposition to this plan. The Gaza war's only truce, 1 week in November, saw hostages freed and Palestinian prisoners held by Israel released. World Food Program Deputy Executive Director Carl Skau said that with lawlessness inside the Strip and active conflict, it has become close to impossible to deliver the level of aid that meets the growing demands on the ground. More than anything, people want this war to end, he said after a 2-day visit to Gaza. The fallout from the Gaza war also escalated this week off Yemen. On Friday, the U.S. military said it destroyed 2 uncrewed surface vessels in the Red Sea belonging to Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels, as well as 1 drone and 7 radars that allowed the rebels to target ships. The rebels' increased attacks against marine commerce in waterways essential to global trade coincided with the most recent retaliatory strikes by American or British forces. A maritime security agency reported earlier on Friday that following a marine drone hit, the crew of the MV Tudor abandoned ship, leaving it adrift in the Red Marine. According to the rebels, they are operating in support of the Palestinian people. The close friend of Israel, the United States, slapped sanctions on an Israeli group whose activists have obstructed supply convoys headed for Gaza, where the UN has issued starvation warnings on Friday. Individuals from Zav9 have repeatedly sought to thwart the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza, including by blockading roads, sometimes violently, the U.S. State Department said. They also have damaged aid trucks and dumped life-saving humanitarian aid onto the road. To shield it from the anticipated high waves, the U.S. military said that a pier it constructed to assist in delivering assistance into Gaza will be temporarily relocated to an Israeli port. A week prior, following storm damage, the platform had only been reattached to Gaza's beach. The leaders of the Group of Seven demanded the rapid and unimpeded passage of humanitarian relief for civilians in need, and insisted that UNRWA, the UN Organization for Palestinian Refugees, be let to operate freely in Gaza. Israel had accused 12 of the agency's personnel in Gaza staff of involvement in the October 7th attack, prompting several donor governments to suspend their contributions.